Have you ever winced at a comment directed at a colleague, sensing something wasn't right, but couldn't quite name what happened? Chances are you witnessed a microaggression, those brief, commonplace exchanges that send subtle, demeaning messages to people based on their identity. We think of microaggressions as the paper cuts of workplace interaction. One might seem minor, but if you imagine experiencing dozens every week, month after month, these small wounds accumulate, creating real pain and exhaustion for those on the receiving end. "Where are you really from?" asks the colleague to an Asian American team member born in Chicago. "Whoa, you're surprisingly tech-savvy," someone comments to the oldest person in the meeting. "You're really committed to your job," someone says to the working parent. Each comment might seem innocent or even complimentary on the surface, but each carries a painful subtext. You're an exception to what we expect of people like you. What makes microaggressions particularly challenging is that they typically come from well-meaning people who would be horrified to learn they've caused harm. The gap between intention and impact creates difficult conversational territory to navigate, which is precisely why we need to talk about them. If you're on the receiving end of a microaggression, know that you get to decide if and when to respond. Consider your energy levels, the relationship at stake, and your personal safety. When you do choose to address it, I statements are powerful. When you comment on how articulate I am, I feel like you're surprised that someone of my background can communicate effectively. Focus on the specific behavior rather than labeling or accusing the person. Witnesses play a crucial role in changing culture. When you observe a microaggression, your silence can feel like an endorsement to the person targeted. Simple interventions can make a difference, like, "I'm not sure if that came across as you intended it to," or redirecting the conversation back to the person who was just interrupted. Using your privilege to speak up when it's safe to do so lightens the burden on those most impacted. If you realize you've committed a microaggression, and we all have, remember that your response matters more than your initial mistake. Resist the urge to defend or explain. Instead, listen fully to understand the impact. Apologize specifically without making it about your feelings. "I'm sorry for making that assumption. Thank you for helping me see how that came across." And then follow through with changed behavior. The ARC approach provides a simple framework for addressing microaggressions in the moment. A, acknowledge what happened. "I noticed that comment about being surprisingly good with technology." R, respond with context. Comments like that can suggest older colleagues aren't expected to be tech savvy. C, change the conversation. Instead, we could simply appreciate the helpful technical contribution without reference to age. When we talk about microaggressions, it's important to remember something. They usually come from deeply rooted social patterns, not from people trying to be hurtful. Most of us absorb certain ideas growing up without even realizing it. Understanding this doesn't make the hurt any less real, of course, but it does help us approach these tricky conversations with compassion instead of making people feel ashamed. After all, none of us got a perfect instruction manual for navigating our diverse world. Creating workplaces where everyone feels they belong isn't about perfection. It's about all of us being willing to learn as we go. Sometimes we'll mess up and get some feedback that's uncomfortable to hear and need to adjust. That's not failing. That's actually what growth looks like. We'd love to challenge you to try something this week. Become a bit more aware of the subtle messages in everyday conversations, including your own comments. When you notice a microaggression and feel it's safe to speak up, try that ARC approach we just discussed. And if you realize you've said something that missed the mark, take a breath and respond with curiosity rather than getting defensive. These small moments might seem insignificant, but they create powerful ripples of change. Each time we speak up or respond thoughtfully, We're helping build workplaces where everyone can truly bring their whole selves and feel like they belong.